So this journalist spotted a guy wearing one of my defund gun control shirts, and this happened.
Defund gun control. All right. Tell me about it.
Well, as you know, Second Amendment protects all our individual rights. And all gun control is, contradictory to that.
So would you be for any sort of regulations on guns?
No.
In the Constitution, it says there will be a well-regulated militia.
Correct.
Does it bother you that in the Constitution it talks about regulating them?
No. Because actually at the time, regulated mean well-trained.
Okay, and do you think that all Americans that have guns are well-trained?
No.
It's amazing to me how so many people think the word regulated in the Second Amendment meant controlled by the government. But as I've exposed in previous videos, this can't be further from the truth.
Well, it's also the one right that uses the phrase well-regulated.
John believes well-regulated means controlled or supervised by the government. In the late 18th century, when the Second Amendment was written, well-regulated did not mean controlled or supervised by the government. It meant well-functioning. Well-regulated in the 18th century tended to be something like well-organized, well-armed, well-disciplined, says Rovod. It didn't mean regulation in the sense that we use it now, in that it's not about the regulatory state. There's been nuance there. It means the militia was in effective shape to fight. In other words, it didn't mean the state was controlling the militia in a certain way, but rather that the militia was prepared to do its duty. Keep in mind, that's coming from a constitutional expert who won a Pulitzer Prize for history. Now, in all fairness, the guy being interviewed was mostly right, but he would have been better off saying well-functioning instead of well-trained, because I knew the moment that he said well-regulated meant well-trained, I knew they were gonna jump on this. Hell, the title of the video was, "This Second Amendment enthusiast admits Americans with guns aren't well-trained." But is he wrong? Most Americans with guns aren't well-trained, because becoming well-trained with a gun is prohibitively expensive, and our government spends more time trying to use training as a barrier to owning a firearm instead of making it an incentive. Most people barely have enough money and time to go to the gun range for fun, much less getting advanced training. The interviewer got blindsided by the fact that the guy he was interviewing knew what well-regulated meant, and so he moved the goalposts and tried to make it about training, when he initially tried to make it about gun control laws and how the Second Amendment should be regulated by the government. What's crazier is what some people were saying in the comment section of this video. Like this guy. At the time the Second Amendment was written, it was law for all men to serve in the militia when called upon, and they had to supply their firearms as well. Outdated and no longer applicable, but don't expect the deplorables to actually understand historical context. No, my friend, it's clear that you don't understand historical context about why the Second Amendment was written and what it was for and what it was doing. The Second Amendment wasn't giving instructions to the people. It was an instruction to the government telling them what they can't do. Who but the government would infringe on the right to keep and bear arms? Why would the people infringe on their own right to keep and bear arms? And why would the founding fathers need to write a document telling us not to infringe on our own rights? Yes, the people just got done fighting a war against their own government at the time and knew that if at any point this new government became tyrannical, the people would need arms to maintain their freedom. Hence, the first part of the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, i.e., in order to keep these people free, they need to have access to firearms. So, government, you can't infringe on their right to own firearms, because if you become tyrannical, these people will keep you in check. It's really that simple. Then there was this comment. Does he think gun control is government funded? Why, yes, I do. Gun laws aren't free. We pay for these laws by way of taxes, and this is why I came up with the defund gun control design, as I explain here. In 2000, Maryland spent $5 million on a bullet ID program. The program lasted 15 years and didn't solve a single crime, not a single one. And now California is trying to do the same thing. A national gun buyback program would on the low end cost the American people $3.2 billion and on the high end, $16 billion. Instead of spending our financial resources or human capital and energy passing and implementing or enforcing useless gun control laws, we should be addressing the underlying mental health issues of the underlying socioeconomic issues of inner city violence, and the lack of firearm education among the masses that result in the accidental gun deaths. Doing this would actually save lives instead of purporting to save lives. The defund gun control movement is about divesting our precious resources from useless and unconstitutional gun control laws and focusing these resources on addressing the underlying issues of inner city violence and accidental gun deaths, and protecting the Second Amendment instead of forcing the American people to pay for the violation of their Second Amendment rights. And then there was this doozy of a comment. If at the time the well-regulated meant well-trained and arms meant a one-shot musket, there's a deal to be struck here. I'm sure Stephen thought that was so clever when he wrote that comment, but it's really just common sense. But apparently common sense ain't so common. So you're telling me the founding fathers had enough foresight to protect the people's right to bear arms in case of a tyrannical government, but not enough foresight to know that firearms would advance over the time. That's why they said arms instead of muskets. Not as bright or smart as clever as you think you are. As is the case with a lot of people in the comment section, the interviewer here thought he knew what he was talking about, but he clearly had no clue. But our guy here did and explained it in a clear and succinct way. Sure, he probably should have said well functioning, but the only reason that the guy even stopped to even have the conversation with the guy wearing t-shirt is because of the shirt that the guy was wearing. And that's essentially why I came up with the Pew Pew Life brand. The Pew Pew Life brand and their two-way designs are designed to pique curiosity from the masses, and then the conversation can be had. And from those conversations comes education. At the end of the day, the people may still not agree with you on the Second Amendment after having a conversation about it. But at least now they're more educated about it, whether they want it to be or not. And that is crucial because the anti-Second Amendment groups and politicians and all the other people screaming and yelling about gun control, they prey on those people who are uneducated about the Second Amendment in order to get these unconstitutional gun laws passed. So the Pew Pew Life brand isn't just about expressing a passion for the Second Amendment. It's also about educating the masses, because the more the masses are educated about their Second Amendment right, the better protected your Second Amendment right will be. But don't get it twisted. There are some people who are just beyond educating. But I assure you, there are more people out there who are open to being educated about the Second Amendment than there are not. If you love what I do here on this channel regarding the Second Amendment and you want to show your support, become a member of the channel. There are 3 membership groups: the Pew Pew Life, the Militia, and the Ammosexuals. Each group has their own perks and benefits. However, because I love my members, unofficially, I will be conducting regular sponsored giveaways for my members. Just last week, I gave away 3 Surefire lights to my members. So if you're interested in learning more, I'll put a link in the description section of this video. Guns aren't political. That's why I need your help getting this message to spread on YouTube by clicking the thumbs up button, leaving a comment to let me know what you think of the video, then subscribing to the channel. But most importantly, click that bell symbol. For products featured in this video, click the links in the description.